This is the Shure MV7 and this is the Shure MV7 Plus. So Shure's released a new version of their popular MV7 dynamic microphone designed for podcasters and streamers. I've got them both with me here. I've been testing them and I can tell you that the MV7 Plus is a clear improvement over the MV7. But in this video, we're going to compare the features and compare the sound, and I'm going to give you my verdict on whether it's worth spending the money to upgrade, or if you don't have either of them, is the MV7 Plus worth the extra 30 or so pounds. So first, let's have a look at the features and the build. So you've probably already noticed they do look very similar. The bottom half of the microphone is practically exactly the same. It's got the same clamp on it. It's got the same shell, and the capsule looks basically identical. We'll talk more about this in the recording stage, but you'll notice that it's got the same exact microphone capsule inside. The reason why the MV7 Plus looks a little bit longer is just because it has a longer foam pop filter, which is a really important upgrade, because even though it's great that there's a foam pop filter built in to the MV7, I find myself editing my client's audio where they've used the MV7, the original one, and there's still the occasional plosive or windy P sound that you get if you don't have a sufficient pop filter. It still has a touch-sensitive LED panel on the front. They've actually simplified it with the MV7 Plus, and now you just get a kind of glowing input metering. If I talk louder, then obviously you're going to see the red and orange, and then you can just tap it to mute or tap again to unmute your input. Whereas on the MV7, you had more of a precise dot-based LED display, and it has a mute button there and a monitoring button there, which the new one doesn't have, unfortunately. The MV7 Plus has a USB-C port on the bottom, whereas the original MV7 has a micro USB port, so it's nice that they've finally upgraded to the USB-C. Although I do find in general with USB-C, a lot of the inputs, especially on these microphones, are a little bit sort of wobbly. I haven't had any problems yet with the connection, but that's just something to keep in mind. And the software has also been upgraded. So the new software is called Motiv Mix that you get with the MV7 Plus. It's got a few new features like the popper stopper, which is supposed to help reduce those plosives even further. Although, again, with that new foam pop filter, I find that this isn't really an issue anyway. But we'll take a look at the software in just a moment. So overall, in terms of just the build and the features, it's definitely an improvement. The fact that it's upgraded to USB-C, it has that larger pop filter. It looks a little bit nicer. I like the what they've done with the LED. It looks pretty sharp, especially if you're going to be having this on video. Although, honestly, it's a slight downgrade in terms of functionality with the touch-sensitive LED panel. But the most important thing is the sound. So let's have a listen to a sound comparison. First, we're going to listen to the XLR connection. So typically, you're going to get a higher quality recording when you're recording via XLR. So we're going to start with that, and I'm going to play you a recording from the MV7 and then one from the MV7 Plus. And you'll notice that there is basically no difference because it is effectively the same mic inside. But just for completion's sake, we're going to get that out of the way, and then we'll have a look at some comparisons between the MV7 and the MV7 Plus plugged in via USB. I am testing the Shure MV7 dynamic microphone using the XLR connection. 1, 2, 3, welcome to the podcast. I am testing the Shure MV7 Plus dynamic microphone using the XLR connection. 1, 2, 3, welcome to the podcast. So that's what the mic sounds like plugged in via XLR. As I mentioned, they do sound practically the same. I think I might have noticed a tiny little bit more low-end response on the MV7 Plus, which is likely down to just that it was positioned maybe slightly close to my mouth, or just down to the slightly different shape of the pop filter. But now you're listening to the mic via USB. So as I'm speaking and as we take a look at this software, you'll be able to get a good example of what it's going to sound like via USB. So this is the Motiv Mix software. They've upgraded the software from the Shure Plus Motiv software that was released alongside the MV7. There have been quite a lot of improvements. Bear in mind that this software isn't exclusive to the MV7 Plus. You can use the older MV7 with it, but as it was released alongside the MV7 Plus, and it's all part of that ecosystem, I just wanted to give you an insight into what features are included. So they've added a few more effects plugins basically that allow you to change how the microphone sounds. I'm just going to reset that back to just the normal sound. I'm going to turn everything off so you can hear what it sounds like when it's not affected by any of these effects. So they've combined the functionality of the old software with a kind of basic digital audio workstation functionality. You can adjust input and output levels of multiple mics, and you can also do some basic recording as well. But the most important thing is how you can affect the sound. So if we take a look at the old software, I'm just taking a screenshot on my other machine here. You can see it's got a few features. You can let the software know whether the mic's placed near or far. I don't really see the point of that because you shouldn't have it far away from you anyway. It's a dynamic mic, but they've removed that from the new software. There's also a more simplified dark, natural and bright tone control, whereas in the new one you can control it like a fader. So as you can tell, that when I bring it down to the dark tone, the sound gets warmer and more bassy, and then the bright tone, it sounds more brittle and trebly. They've also upgraded the LED options along with the upgraded LED panel of the MV7 Plus. In the old software, you could just turn it on to light and dark mode and whether or not it's metering live. Whereas in this new software, you can change the brightness to 4 different settings, and you can also change it to pulsing and change the color to anything within the RGB spectrum. The old software also had a compressor and limiter, which the new software does as well. So we can set the compression to light, medium or heavy, which is going to reduce the level of the louder sounds going into the microphone. Personally, I prefer leaving all of that stuff off and then just mixing it after. But if you're not confident with mixing, or you just want to make things easier for you, you can make use of these tools. We've also got a couple of other things, other new features, which I don't feel are particularly useful. We've got a reverb feature on there. As you'll notice, you can set these different types of reverb and change the intensity. This could work if you're maybe doing some kind of voiceover or something like that. And also it's got a digital popper stopper, which Shure say is going to further reduce the plosives that you're going to be picking up. But to be honest, with the new pop filter, I haven't really had an issue with that anyway. And then it's also got a real-time denoiser, which the old software does have. Now, particularly with USB microphones, you do tend to get a little bit of low-level noise, just white noise. You can typically remove this after the fact in the mixing stage, but again, for those not confident with doing that, or if you're recording live where you just want that highest quality possible recording on the way in, then this does reduce the noise. And if I just stop talking for a minute and turn it on then off, you'll hear the difference. Now, honestly, this is one issue that I did have with the old MV7, the self-noise when plugged in via USB. I also found the mic to be quite prone to electrical interference. I tested the MV7 on my desktop, on laptop. I didn't get this issue on the laptop, but when I plugged in with a USB on my desktop, it had this kind of low-level, high-pitched, whiny sound. So I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I know others have had this same issue just based on the research that I've done, but I moved the mic away from my speakers and phone and things like that, and it still occurred. However, I haven't had this issue with the MV7 Plus, and this is honestly, for me anyway, the biggest improvement. I don't know exactly why this is, but it just doesn't seem to be as prone to electrical interference. I don't know if maybe they've improved the shielding inside the mic. So again, there is an improvement here as well, but this software is available for both mics, but you won't get access to all of the features like some of the LED functionality. Now, for completion's sake, I just want to give you an example of what that noise sounded like for me on the MV7 and what it sounds like now with the MV7 Plus. Now, both of these don't have any kind of denoising, real-time denoiser or anything like that on. I just want to give you an example of what that kind of electronic interference that the old mic was picking up for me and how this has improved. And after that, I'm going to give you my verdict on which one to get or whether it's worth upgrading if you've already got the MV7. So, the verdict. Is it worth buying the MV7 Plus if you already have an MV7? I would say probably not, unless you can get one cheap secondhand and you really like the look of the touch panel. If you're having issues with pops and things with the MV7, you can always buy a larger pop filter for it, or add one to your boom arm that you're connecting it to. The software features aren't really worth spending the extra for an upgrade. But if you don't have either of these mics and you're watching this video wondering which one you should get, if they're both still available, and the MV7 Plus is obviously a little bit more expensive, I would say it is worth spending the extra $30, £30 or whatever it is to upgrade to the MV7 Plus. I mean, for me, I found that the self noise, that kind of hiss, as I mentioned, from the MV7 is gone. So I reckon that they've upgraded the shielding or something to do with the internals to prevent that. So it's also a more modern release, so you're probably going to get support from Shure for a longer time, and it's got that better pop filter built in out the box. So let me know what you think. If you got one of these two microphones, or if you're making a decision, let me know which one you pick in the comments. And for more podcast related tips and tutorials, hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.